I've kind of likened my books to an amusement park. It's like, hey, come on in to the Richard Fox Park. Get on this ride called the Ember War. Whoa, it's fun! Wow, that was great. That was fun. I was like, oh, there's another ride called the Ruins of Athos. Let's go on that ride. Whee! So, it's when the readers are going through. I want them, at the end of the book to be like, okay, I feel better, from that story. It doesn't have to end on a high mark. Rather, when people pick up a book, that book asks a question, and at the end of the book, that question has been answered, and then you pose the question for the next book, and that's how you get readers from book 2 to 4 to 5 to 9.
Welcome to the Author Like a Boss podcast, the podcast for indie authors who want to improve their writing, up-level their marketing, make money with their books, and have fun doing it. Now, on to the show with your host, Ella Barnard.
Hey boss, if you are starting on your author journey but are nervous about marketing, then I've got something special for you. I've just released a book called Start Marketing Your Book. In it, I share fundamental marketing principles and simple, actionable steps that you can take right now. For less than a cup of coffee, you could actually have everything you need to start selling more books. To buy the book, go to authorlikeaboss.com/start marketing. Hey bosses, welcome to Author Like a Boss. We are here today with Richard Fox. And I maybe geeked out a little bit and felt the need to educate myself. But let me tell you a little about him. Richard Fox is the winner of the 2017 Dragon Award for Best Military Science Fiction or Fantasy Novel, author of the Ember War saga, a military science fiction and space opera series, and other novels in the military history, thriller, and space opera genres. I probably should have went and found the Dragon Award and read that one first, but I didn't. He lives in fabulous Las Vegas with his incredible wife and 3 boys, amazing children bent on anarchy. He graduated from the United States Military Academy, West Point, much to his surprise, and spent 10 years on active duty in the United States Army. He deployed on 2 combat tours to Iraq and received the Combat Action Badge, Bronze Star, and Presidential Unit Citation. Wow. Okay, Richard, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
I am really curious to find out how you went from military academy to where you are now. What was that journey like? How did you go from there to massively successful sci-fi author?
Well, it's kind of like anytime someone runs into a new job, it's like you're backing out of a driveway and you hit something, you get out and it's a new job. Oh, okay. And I had spent 10 years on active duty, and before that I loved to read as a child. Read lots of fantasy, read military science fiction. Grew up on Star Wars and Star Trek. I was a huge fan of all that. So that was, a big part of my life, and where all my allowance went as a child was to books. So as I've always been quite the reader. And so I was in the Army. I did that for 10 years. I got out. I was an intelligence contractor, and being an intelligence contractor, it's sort of like, your ship has wrecked on the shoals. And if you're on a contract, you found a piece of driftwood to hold on to, but it's slowly taking on water. Then you had to pedal over to another piece of driftwood to stay afloat. So I was looking for something that could be somewhat more stable, and I went with writing, which not the clearest line from A to B to that, but I just kind of got lucky. So I had one day I was at work, I was bored, and I somehow came across a blog by Joe Conrath where he has stated how he was making it as an independent author, and he hadn't gone through the whole rigmarole of agent to publishing house to accepted manuscript, et cetera, et cetera. He just put it on Amazon and was making money, and I was like, this is possible. And the more I looked into it, like, oh, this is quite possible. Okay, well, what can I write? And I thought to myself, well, I'm a military intelligence officer. I've been to a war. Why don't I write about a military intelligence officer during the Iraq War? And that was not what readers wanted. So it took me a couple of books of writing what people did not want to read before finally a very kind author by the name of Russell Blake said, have you tried a different genre? And that's when the light bulb went off on top of my head. Like, oh, well, I've loved Star Wars before I could walk. Why don't I try that? And so I decided to write a Michael Bay movie, but with marginally better dialogue, and put that out and see how that did. And that was the Ember War, and it took off. And the sequels and subsequent spin-off series have all done very well. And I have a career as a writer, much to my surprise.
I love that you were like, I need something that's more consistent. I need more consistent income than this contracting. So I think I'm going to be a writer.
Yeah, this is normally not. It's normally. I don't recommend that to anyone.
I think my parents for sure would have been like, I think they specifically said the exact opposite. So
normally that's true. Normally the opposite is true.
Yeah. So can you give me a little bit of a time frame about that? Can you give us like, okay, how long did it take you to put out your first books, and and what was the time frame for all this?
My first book, I think it took me upwards of 8 months to write, because it was my first book. And then when it finally did get put out there, and then I kind of waffled between writing, like after that first book, I wrote something else in a different genre based off a screenplay I'd written many years ago. That was my The Red Baron. And neither of these books did well. And I tried to do sequels to that first military thriller book. And for about 2 or 3 years, I wrote a total of four novels, none of which sold. And then, the job I had, let's just say I was not very much engaged at my day job, so I had more time to write. And I kind of saw the writing on the wall that this contract was going to end. So I thought to myself, well, let me try building up some skills in computer security, and that was boring. And let me just sit here at my keyboard and make stuff up, and that was more exciting. So I kept doing that, and that's where the Ember War came about. Was working out with that deadline of your job's about to end, write something that sells, and the Ember War did. So, but for the first 2 or 3 years of my writing career, I did not sell anything. Mm-hmm. Like upwards of double digits in revenue per month. It took a while before I actually wrote something that made money.
Oh, good. Everybody will be glad to know. Because I think that's something that people have this idea that all of a sudden happens, and it doesn't. You have everybody. You see the other side, and I've talked about this a lot. So I want to go to a different topic. I'm curious, because I know a lot of people that listen to me, a lot in this podcast, they have done so much research on how to write a good book, and it sounds to me like you just read a lot. But can you tell me, like, what have you done to be the good writer that you are?
What helped was when I first started writing. I wanted to write a screenplay. And I picked up a book on screenplay structure. And when you pick up a book on screenplay structure, you get story structure. So it's not just beginning, middle, end. It's rather, understand where your act breaks are and what's compelling people to go from one page to another. And when I started with screenplays, the common knowledge was you've got 10 pages, 8 to 10 pages to really, hook someone to read it. So when I was writing it, the screenplay, I made sure page 8 was kind of, it was an action scene so people would just keep reading. And so what it came down to just knowing structure and don't be boring is important. And just compel people to keep reading. So like for when I write, I purposely stay away from big info dumps because it just puts this big old wall in the middle of the reader experience to keep going. It's like, here's 3 pages of backstory. Like, no, just incorporate the story, the backstory into more of the action, some of the dialogue, and you're better off. So it was reading lots of books on story structure. I found was very helpful.
Okay.
And there's if you want it in the elementary level of structure, you get Sid Field's Save the Cat. You want the high school level of story structure, you get Joseph Campbell's Hero with a Thousand Faces. And if you want, and then you can go a little simpler. That is The Writer's Journey. That's another book. If you really want to go PhD level, you get Dr. Jordan B. Peterson's Maps of Meaning. And if you can digest that, God bless you, because I'm trying to get through that right now. It's tough, but it's still very valuable. That one book.
So you are still educating yourself.
Oh, always. It's, he goes through that one story about one day a young man shows up at a lumber yard, and he's got an axe on his shoulder, and he goes to the foreman and says, I will cut down 9 trees a day. And the foreman says, well, the standard's 5. I'm going to cut down 9. Okay, go. Kid goes out there, cuts down 9 trees. Foreman's like, wow, it's great. Keep at it. Next day, the kid cuts down 7. Foreman's still happy. Like, okay, great. Yeah, you're doing great. Third day, this young man has cut down 3, and the sun's setting. He's still struggling with the 4th, and the foreman goes over, what's going on? And the young man says, I'm not sure. So the foreman looks at his axe and says, hey, your axe is dull. Why don't you sharpen your axe? You'd have a better job. And the kid says, I've been too busy cutting down trees to sharpen my axe. Mm-hmm. So you get into, it doesn't matter where you are in your career, you could always sharpen your axe and be better. So it's, I still buy books and still read books on structure. And I just picked up Tammy Lebresque's email book about being a better emailer. So you always have to keep at it. You're never done.
Yeah.
So no matter where you're in your writing career, you're never done.
I love that you're continuing to educate yourself. I think a lot of people might look at where you're at in your writing career and be like, oh, he's just writing. So can you tell us a little bit about your day-to-day writing routines then, including the educating?
Okay. It's I get up in the morning, I get my exercise out, and then I will do my best to write between 3,000 to 5,000 words per day. And then once I've got 60 to 75,000 words, however long the current manuscript is done, and then that goes off to the editor, and then it's time to start outlining for the next book. So, and then outlining could be 2 to 3 more days, and then the whole process starts again. Now, there's also answering emails, and I try to put that at one time per day, that I'm going to go answer emails, because otherwise, when you're at your computer, there's thousands of distractions. Just nibbling at you, just like come to Facebook, come to Instagram, go to Amazon and go buy something. It's always there. But and so if you can, the hard part is saying no. I will answer emails from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. for all my editors and for my audiobooks and for the art and for Kickstarter projects, etc. That 1 hour is when I'll do business stuff and other author relation stuff. And then at the end of the day, okay, now I'll go to my Facebook page, check my Facebook ads, see if I've got questions from readers, post something on my Facebook page to, do some engagement with my, the 2,000 or so people who like that one page. And so, I do my best to keep writing as one continuous block without distractions. And then bookends to that is business stuff, and bookends to that is reader engagement.
Okay. So you save all of your Facebook stuff, even the ad stuff, to the end, because just getting on Facebook to look at ads can...
Oh, there's rabbit holes everywhere on Facebook. It's like, look, kittens. It's you could just waste entire days just running around on Facebook yelling at people.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I use an app called Freedom that it whacks everything on my internet. That's not what I want it to be. So from a 6 to 8 hour period, I've got nothing but Google and email. So this way I don't even have the distraction.
Yeah.
Let's go see what's on Amazon.
I know, it's so fun, especially when you like reading books.
Oh yeah.
You're like, somebody's book came out today. I wonder how they're doing. Okay. And I wanted to ask you, I thought about this. I'm getting the sense that you're like this humble kind of guy, and I really appreciate that. But the thing that I want to know is, how did you're like, I put the Ember War out. This is you, me, this is me imitating you. I put the Ember War saga out there, and then it was fine. And that was it. But I know there was more to it than that. I'm really glad that people really liked it. And that's the one that I read the first of, because that's the one you recommended to me. Mm-hmm. But what happened? Like, how, because a lot of people don't know that process of, you put one out there and it does well, which is exciting, but putting one out there and having it do well doesn't guarantee doing well a few years later. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Right. Well, for me, the secret to doing well continuously is to put out a new book every 60 to 90 days. And what a lot of that is you got to make Amazon's algorithm happy, because Amazon wants to sell books, and Amazon wants people to continuously come to their webpage and spend money. And the way Amazon entices people to their webpage is with something new and shiny. So every time I can give Amazon a new shiny book to pull in readers back onto their webpage, Amazon appreciates that and shares it with more readers. So for me, the way the success keeps happening is that I keep putting out more books, and books that readers really do want to read in genres that I've already kind of established myself in. Now, when I first, the Ember War came out, and while that was being edited, I started a second book called The Queen of Sidonia, which is more a young adult, kind of geared towards middle, high school age, middle grade girls, because it's sort of a sci-fi romance with a little bit of action to it. And I wrote that, and for some reason put that out under a pen name, and it flopped because I had no readership at all. And then later on, I put it out under my own name, and it still did not do any well, because readers were like, "This is not the Ember War, Richard. We're not interested." It's like, okay. So
I think you also recommended that one, and I didn't read that one because I was like, I want to know what the people who love Richard Fox are reading. But then I thought, because I'm learning more about algorithms, I was like, oh shoot, I hope I'm not ruining Richard's algorithm by buying his book.
Those books that book's 3 years old, so
okay. So I was like, oh no, this isn't my typical thing. Like, I read sci-fi, but not like military sci-fi, and I hope I'm not messing with his algorithm.
Yeah, it's only like that first month that people had to be worried about their algorithm. After that, Amazon's pretty much got it. So
okay, phew. See, learning new things every day. Awesome.
And one thing is, once someone has a measure of success, you got to keep that momentum going. And if you look, let's take the metaphor to a different place. If you open a great pizza restaurant, and people love your pizza, and they're buying your pizza every single day, and then everyone comes into your restaurant and you're like, here's a cheeseburger. People will be like, why? I came here for pizza and you're giving me a cheeseburger. So, it's, for my readers, they really like the military sci-fi and everything with that. So I need to, keep giving it to them. Mm-hmm. And if I go, hey, everybody, here's a 800-page book about Napoleon's marshals, they're going to look at me funny and not buy it. So, and then I go hungry, and so does my family. So I just, I know what people want from me. I know what they like. And I just keep giving it to them, and it works out great for everyone. Imagine that.
Yeah, so. It's a win-win. So did you, now you say what your people like, and how did you find out exactly what your people like? And I know obviously there's some measure of it based on just what people are buying, but I've done surveys. Okay, yes, that's what I was like. Is there anything else?
Yeah, I've done 2 different surveys where I told my readers, hey, go take this survey. You can win a prize at the end. It's all randomized. So this way, you get people in, get their opinions, and I figure out which books do they really like, and which characters do they really like, and what do they want from me next, and what's the good price point, and how do they get their recommendations for how they find new books, and all very valuable information. And no one is asking for Napoleon books, so okay, that can wait forever. So,
is that a book that you have in your head that you're like,
I
someday?
would love that. I was a military history major in college, and I have lots of Napoleon books. I've been to Napoleon's tomb in Paris, and that's just that's something on the deep back burner. Meanwhile, I have all kinds of ideas for military science fiction that I want to get out first.
Awesome. Okay, I love that, because I know a number of people who are like, I have so many ideas, I don't know how to do them all. And hearing how professionals who are making good money doing it, what your mindset is around that is really helpful. So it's sitting there, you guys, somewhere on the back burner. Okay, I'm curious, how much do you put from your military experience? How does that integrate into your stories?
One of the more useful things is that I know how soldiers kind of act around each other, because I was there. I know how officers act around each other, and that sort of interaction is not something you really would glean from reading nonfiction or you would get from watching movies. But having been there, I know how to I know how these soldiers banter with each other. That's been very helpful to put in. And I have a lot of veterans who like, I knew you were a veteran as soon as you started making that kind of joke between soldiers. I'm like, okay, good. And that's has all been very useful. Now that I was a military intelligence officer, and if I straight up put some of that in the books, I had to move to Russia. So that kind of gets I don't put that in. So and then, but the military intelligence background is helpful when I have someone running a spy sort of mission. I don't put it exactly how it goes down, but rather I know how spies sort of get information from people and how they'll run sources, etc. That kind of thing. So that's a little bit more authenticity to where things go in.
Yeah. I definitely, when I was reading your book, I was like, I read a couple of paragraphs to my husband, who is also not been in the military. And he's like, does there some kind of vocabulary thing at the front or the back of the book that he asked this? And I'm like, no, you just have to figure it out from the context.
Oh yeah. And it's like I used to be an artillery officer, and I could write entire pages of acronyms talking about how to set up the gun to shoot the gun right and hit the target. And it would just be dense and impossible for the average reader unless they'd been through 13 Alpha School at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. So there's that level of stuff that readers or writers should not put in, because you're not writing a Wikipedia entry. You're writing a story that's entertainment and escapism. So don't put roadblocks. Don't put roadblocks in front of your reader. It's like I'm of the opinion that if your reader has to go to an appendix in the back to understand what the heck's going on, you're not doing your job right as a writer.
Yeah, it did not detract from the story.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I'm still able to understand what's happening. I'm sure. And plus I knew I was going to be interviewing you. So I'm like thinking about things while I'm like, oh, yep. I'm reading it and enjoying the story, and kind of on a meta level being like, what is it that I want to ask him about this? But yeah, it did not detract from the story, and the story was very enjoyable. So how did you get... I'm all over the place with this interview, and I apologize for that. But when you were sending the surveys out, were you sending it to people on your list? Were you finding people on Facebook? Who were you surveying?
It was just people on my mailing list.
Okay. And how did you...
go ahead.
How did you build your mailing list?
All right. So at the end of all of my books, I have a magnet. And for the Ember War, it's like, here's some free stories free short stories set in the Ember War that you're not going to find anywhere else. So, at the end of the book, if people have reached the end of the book, hopefully they've liked it. So that, say, hey, come on, join my mailing list and get more of what you already like. It is an easy sell. Mm-hmm. So, and then people, they click the thing and they sign up and they get the free, they get the free stories, and it goes on from there. So it's always, at the end of the book, hey, get your thing. And then I put that same magnet at the end of every single book. So, because like maybe people are 4 or 5 books in and they're like, okay, fine, I'll read that one story. Now I'm interested in it. And so it's always, you have that call to action at the end of a book is what I do. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And that's it.
I have done, I've gone to my other peers within the military sci-fi, and a couple times I said, hey, offer the Ember War to your readers if they sign up on my mailing list. And that's garnered me, I think, another 1,000 people on my mailing list. It's just like, I know people, his stuff is the same as my stuff. Mm-hmm. And if his readers haven't already gone to my stuff, and now it's like, hey, read the Ember War, free, just sign up on my spam-free mailing list, as I always say. So that's, and not a lot of people do that, where they just do the straight, hey, sign up for his mailing list and get this book. That's, I'm not sure if that's a viable tactic just yet, but it's available.
That's awesome. I think I know who some of the guys you might be talking about, because I've already interviewed some of them. I'm like, how did I end up interviewing all these amazing military sci-fi and space opera authors? But I really like it. So every time I end one of these interviews, I'm like, there's some really good guys out there. And the indie authors are so generous with their time and information. It's makes me I tear up a little bit sometimes. Yeah. Okay. One of the guys I talked to, Josh, who you're writing with, so he said you have He said one of the things that people really, really like about your books are the pacing.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find that out, and what do you do to make sure the pacing is it? If it's back to screenwriting, but can you expound a little?
Sure. When it comes to pacing, my mantra is don't be boring. And what helps with any pacing is having multiple arcs, story arcs within a book, because there's going to be some point where people have to get into a space shuttle and they're going to be in space for hours on end. And how do you pass that time? Well, if you have more than one level of action, like you've got your Space Marines and they're one plot line, you have you're the captain of the spaceship, he's the second plot line, and then you have this third group of soldiers are another plot line. So what you have is you have the action from one plot line go up when the action from another plot line goes down. So, it's okay, Space Marines are getting in the shuttle. Well, that's when the spaceship is getting into a huge fight. So, so when you go from scene to scene, it's always kind of higher end, interesting stuff is happening. So you're not spending 10 pages of people sitting around cleaning their weapons. Mm-hmm. Rather, it's, you can kind of imply that the boring stuff is happening and then that time is passing while more exciting things are happening. If you have just weaving the plot lines together to make sure there's always something interesting going on is how I do my best for the pacing.
Yeah, because I noticed that, and I was like, this is one of his first books, the Ember War is like the first one that took off and one of the earlier on in your career. Is that true?
Yeah, it's the first book that sold 100 copies a day.
Okay, so there's a lot of different points of views in that book.
There are, and that's that's done to keep the excitement level up. Because if it's just I've tried to write stories with just one POV and they tend to drag, and then the books tend to be a lot shorter too. So.
So you did that on purpose?
I do have the multiple points of view in there, and it's like one thing is I've noticed. Okay, think about Star Wars and the fourth reel of any Star Wars movie. Mm-hmm. You have like 3 different fights going on at the exact same time. Think about Return of the Jedi. You've got Luke and Vader fighting with lightsabers. You've got Han and Chewie down on Endor, and you've got Lando Calrissian in the Millennium Falcon, and they're all doing things at the exact same time. And I end up doing that for quite a larger portion of my book than just 20 to 40% of a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I'm always trying to have that third act of Return of the Jedi with multiple things happening at the same time. It's a bear to plot, I tell you that much. I had the one book I just did, A House Divided. There is a jailbreak on Mars, which involves what's happening on Mars, within the jail, people coming to rescue people from the jail, and then what's happening in space above Mars. And it just took me forever to get it right. But when it came out, it worked. So, but it's that's the kind of the level of plotting I have to get into. Is like, I know these guys are here, and then they're going to be here, and that's going to affect this, et cetera, et cetera. And what kind of helps is when I was in the Army, I was an artillery officer and a military intelligence officer. And when you're artillery, you support maneuver, which is you're supporting the tanks and the infantry guys and the aircraft, and they're all moving around, and then you have to shoot the guns at the right time to hit the right things. And so, being able that kind of spatial awareness as an artillery and an intelligence officer has been helpful as writing, because I'm like, I know how everything is supposed to work. Let me make sure it all fits.
Huh. I like that, because I think there's a lot of people who have something in their lives where they've had to spatially aware, and you can use that in your writing.
I mean, does someone have kids?
Yeah.
They got to be, wake up, change clothes at this time, and then, get to school here, and then this practice, that practice, and this. Okay, then the kid doesn't want to eat the goldfish today. He's got to have the crackers. It's just,
mm-hmm.
that kind of thing. So if you're used to juggling anything, you can kind of put those skills to work in writing.
Goldfish, the universal kid snack.
Oh, yeah, great.
I have a lady that I work with who she used to be an interior designer. And so when she was working on plotting, my partner at the time, business partner, she was like, well, have you ever organized anything else in your life? And she's like, well, yeah, I did interior design. And she was able to take the way that she planned interior design and use it to plan her books.
There you go.
So yeah, I really like that. And I wanted to ask, okay, but I want to get to the nitty gritty of, because you're like, it's a bear to manage. How, like, literally, are you like Post-it noting it? Do you have a document? Are you in Scrivener? Like, what are you doing to manage those timelines? Because as I was reading it, I was like, this is impressive.
It's a lot of Word documents, and then I have bullet points surrounded with brackets on the other side, and then I'll go through like, okay, this is Gideon's story arc for the whole book. Like five or eight different parts. And then I'm like, okay, then this is Roland's story arc, and this is the Ibarra story arc. And I get them, and I look at them all, and I'm like, okay, where are they going to fit together? And I can see where, this one drags a little bit. Okay, so I need to have Gideon getting a fight here, and it's a lot of just moving. I've got the beats laid out, and then going back through and weaving them together. So. Yeah, I don't do Post-it notes. It's all just bullet points on a Word document that I juggle around. Okay.
You clearly have a knack for this, and you've clearly been doing it for a while, because you know what you're talking about, and in describing it, you've been doing it long enough that describing it is like, I just do it.
It's like anything. You just get to that point. Just think of someone who starts cooking. The first time you bake a cake, it's a mess.
Yeah.
But then after the 50th or 60th cake, it's nothing. You don't even get flour on you. So it all comes down to just practice and keeping at it. I think I'm up to 28, 29 books now, somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. So it's just the work continues. So,
how did you? And I heard this from Josh's side, but I'd like to hear it from yours. How did you end up signing up and doing co-writing? What was that process, and how you're like, I want to do this?
It's we came to the Ember War, and when I finished that series, there was a number. At the end of book 9, I gave myself a couple of trapdoors because I wanted to go do a different thing, and then I was like, well, I can always just come back to the Ember War if those different things don't sell. And so, and then I had the one series with the armor soldiers and their arc with dealing with the Ibarra Nation. And then I had also that these characters are going to go to this completely other galaxy, this dwarf galaxy on the edge, way out there, and do their things. And my readers were interested in that story. And the thing is, it comes down to is like, okay, I could spend another year writing the second series, and then everyone's going to forget all about Terra Nova and the characters that go over there. And when it comes time to go back to that, people are going to be like, what? Mm-hmm. And it's going to be yourself. So okay. I know how that story arc was going to go. So I approached Josh and said, Josh, here's the story arc I want to write. Are you interested? He was all for it. So now we've been going through that. And then when my other co-writer, Scott Moon, is, for the Iron Dragoon series, there's a couple events that, I wanted to do regarding where this one character named Admiral Valder was going to be, because I didn't want him involved because he was too important. So I wanted him off to the side. So I'm like, okay, where's this character going to be? Then how can I tell that story in a timely manner so that readers are going to care about it? And then it will feed into the larger story of the Iron Dragoon series. So that's where I went to Scott. I said, Scott, here, I want you to write this one series with the Marine characters and what they're doing over here, and then these vignettes that are part of this larger war, and trying to weave those two together. And that's been really tough. And I would not do that again. I would not try to write two series that magically fit within each other as you're reading, and then all of a sudden you need a flowchart to understand where things are going. And lesson learned. Don't do that. But still, we're gonna finish all the books, and we're gonna complete the series. So eventually there are some readers who do like the flowchart, and then there's going to be some people who pick up read the 5 books there, and they're like, this seems like it's part of a larger thing. Oh, there's this other series.
It makes me think of, sometimes there's TV series So you like watch Bones or whatever, or CSI, and then you watch CSI LA, and they have one episode or two on occasion. They'll have an episode where they bring all the people together, and you're like, oh, hey, it's the people from that other series. Except for that you're doing the whole series that way.
Yeah, it's now you look at how Marvel has done their Marvel movies.
Mm-hmm.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And it almost always works. 10 years of movies, and they've made it almost always work. And I'm trying to do it, and it's kind of like it works most of the time. So, but then you look at Star Wars, and they can't go 2 movies without ruining their whole fan base. Anyway, different discussion. different discussion. My husband, I'm not a huge. I've watched all the Star Wars, but I'm not huge on Star Wars, but we are very huge on Star Trek. Mm-hmm.
And he feels the same way about some of the new things. He's like, it's not the same. It's not the same. But I have a number of questions that I want to ask. And first, I just want to acknowledge that the characters in that first book in the Ember Wars are very, very strong enough that it's very interesting. You guys, people, I recommend reading the book because Richard, you have this really the story and the plot and the action. The characters are real and full, but there's not like one character that carries it. It's each character is real and full enough to deserve their own series. Like each of the main characters, you're like, well, that person could have their own series. That person could have their own series. And I'm not surprised that they are starting to. How do you create those characters that are so real like that? How do you make that so that even with just the brief words that you, because it's not like the book is, 200,000 pages or 200, like how do you do that?
It does get to archetypes a lot. Is what one of the main heroes from the Ember War is Lieutenant Hale, and I know this is a young officer who is going to be in way over his head too many times. He starts off, things are fine, and then all of a sudden aliens wipe out most of humanity. Okay, struggle, ready, go. And then there's the character named Stacey Ibarra, and I knew I had plans for her that she was going to be I've just been punching her in the gut for about 15 books now, and it's not getting any easier on her. And then there's also the comic relief, because I know I'm writing a book where most of humanity gets wiped out, and then these aliens are killing everyone. And it's like, okay, all of a sudden you do need, you don't need jokes in the middle of a fight, but all of a sudden you do need that one character who can come along and kind of reduce the tension. And that's where Standish comes in, who's based on a lot of soldiers I knew. This Standish character in the Ember War, he's a convicted felon who was, given the option to enlist in the Space Strike Marines, and he's still mostly criminal, but his heart's in the right place. So when he's always, he's the one with the mouth, and he's the one who's always up to no good. And it's fun to have him around because everyone's like, oh, good, Standish is here. We can relax a little bit. So it's he also actually becomes a point of plotting when I know okay, Standish is gonna make everyone happy for a little bit, and then we can kind of end the book on a higher note. So and it's all, you have those characters who are all kind of archetypes, and then you have Cortaro, who he is the head NCO, so he's going to be firm. He's not gonna have much sense of humor, but then it's like, okay, I also need to humanize him. So this poor character, his wife and many, I think 6, children all died off camera.
Yes.
So he's dealing with this, and he finds evidence that he finds video of his kids, wishing that he would come back home after the ship he was in kind of disappeared. So, and it's just like, oh my gosh, that's just a punch in the gut for the reader and the character.
It was.
And then you have one of the more popular characters in the Ember War. His name is Elias, and Elias is just this paragon. Let's put it that way. I based Elias off this one infantry officer I knew who, like, sometimes you come across people, you look and you're like, I'm never gonna be as good as this guy. And there was just this one officer. He was amazing at everything. I'm like, man, good for him. I'm glad he's on our side. So Elias is just this paragon of goodness, and he knows what's right. He never deviates from that. and character and readers really appreciate, how Elias does things. And then at the end of the series, how Elias ends up, makes sense to everyone. So, and it's and then you have Marker Barra, who's the plotter, the schemer, the absolute liar, but he's also trying to save everyone.
Mm-hmm.
He's not doing it right. He's like George Soros with more snark, and that was one way to put it.
Yeah.
And he is not a hero. And then as the series goes on, you get into the second series, he's still kind of a real scumbag, but he's doing it. He has his reasons, and his reasons, most people can agree with, but his methods, it's like, no. But he just can't figure out any other way to get this to get his goal other than doing what a lot of people can be like, oh no, that's not moral or ethically right. But so it's nice to have that kind of character who it spurs some some thought from the readers, like, well, is this guy doing it the right? Is what Marker Barra doing the right thing? And you kind of look like, well, if he doesn't do it, you look at these consequences. But could he do it some other way and still get it's good that people can have some sort of discussion about and thoughts about about a character like that. So that's good to have in, because if everyone is just kind of a little one note, it gets boring.
Mm-hmm. And your motto is, don't be boring.
Don't be boring.
Okay. When you're making these characters, because I think that was really, even just the way that you're talking about them is really like, know them. So how do you, know them as an archetype, but you also, these are real people in your head, mind, life. You're like, this guy from 3 years ago that you're still writing about, but how do you keep track?
When I start a new series, I have a kind of a series Bible Word document where I go through and I have a character for Iron Dragoons named Ignar, and I write down his whole backstory. And one of his backstory was he was a soldier. He got married and had a kid early on, got divorced, and he got very badly injured in the course of a battle. Like, he loses his legs from his knees down, his arms from the shoulder, from the elbow down. His bottom jaw is gone. He can't talk normally. And the only reason he gets into this armor program is, as disabled as he is, he can still fight. So it's like, okay. So I understand what is this guy's motivation, is that he wants to still be useful, even though, his body is wrecked. So, okay, I have that kind of character in Iron Dragoons, and then, and then I set up, so I envision these characters who are going to be in here, going to be interesting, and figure out what their backstory is. Mm-hmm. And I have an alien character who was actually, as a baby, was in an Ember War book, and then I okay, how am I going to keep this alien interesting? Well, she's going to get married and have to lay an egg, and that kind of thing, and as time goes on.
Okay.
So that I do kind of a series Bible for the series when it starts off, to know what the backstory of everyone is.
How long is that Bible?
It's 15 to 20,000 words, but it's written in, my shorthand, mm-hmm. and in bullet points. So if I gave it to someone to read, they'd be like, what is this? It's a bunch of letters, that doesn't make any sense. So it was.
Yeah. I wanted to know how long it is, because I can tell that it's pretty in depth. So, your series Bible isn't, 3 or 4 pages. That's why the quality of your books are so good, is because you put all that time and effort into the back end that never sees the light of day.
Yeah, it's also there's the inception. Like, when I started the Ember War, I knew what the very last scene of the entire book, the entire series was going to be. Was the characters from book 1 are in this very alien environment. The entire galaxy has changed, and now they're left on their own. It's kind of like, what do we do now? I just wanted to have that, well, what do we do now kind of moment after this long saga of 9 books, to the point where, well, I guess we're on our own. We better figure it out for ourselves. So, I had that in mind. And then, even with the Iron Dragoon series, I know how it ends. Even when I first thought it was going to be 5 books, it's probably going to be 6 or 7 now, but I know how it's going to end. And it's just getting me to be keeping it interesting is the hard part. So.
And you keep it interesting with these different kinds of characters and making their lives more interesting, and then having them interact.
Right, and then it's also, where is you have your villain, of course, and I'm of the opinion that your villain determines how long your entire story is going to be. If you're dealing with a bully at the end of the end of the block, you can take care of that in a short story. If you've got millions and trillions of drones coming at you from across the galaxy, okay, you're not going to get that done in 60,000 words. So that's so it's how what the bad guy or the antagonist is doing to kind of futz up the plan along the way is also another part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your bad guys in the first book reminded me a lot of the Doctor Who.
The Dalek.
Yes.
Yeah, and the thing about I first started with the Zaros drones. They were just drones, and I made a decision that they would never ever try to communicate with anyone. And I realized that's boring.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, so let me figure this out here. So then who's in charge of the drones? Aha. Okay. Then I've got some more characters there, and then during the second book, I realized, okay, these characters are just running around a jungle hiding from drones. That's boring. Let's bring in some brain-eating lizard people and put them in there, and that worked great. So
okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not the first person to notice that.
Well, a lot of people know that just drones is kind of boring. You got to have your snidely whiplash behind the scenes for readers not to like.
Yeah. Yes. People like not liking somebody.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah.
Do you think about what experience you want your readers to have while you're writing and plotting?
I've kind of likened my books to an amusement park. It's like, hey, come on in to the Richard Fox Park. Get on this ride called the Ember War. Whoa, it's fun. Wow, that was great. That was fun. There's another ride called the Ruins of Atlas. Let's go on that ride. Whee! So it's when the readers are going through, I want them, at the end of the book to be like, okay, I feel better, from that story. It doesn't have to end on a high mark. Rather, when people pick up a book, that book asks a question, and at the end of the book, that question has been answered, and then you pose the question for the next book, and that's how you get readers from book 2 to 4 to 5 to 9. All the ways that you keep at you satisfy a reader by asking a question and then answering it in the same story. So, readers, they just hate it when they see those 3 horrible words, to be continued, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, why didn't you finish it when I've got the story in my hand? People don't appreciate those 3 words. And if you cliffhanger in the middle of a battle, it's like, oh, why? And then people will read the next book just to get the answer, but they're going to resent you for it. So it's best not to end a book like that. Rather, you give that sense of closure of I answered the question of the book 2 of the Ember War, the Ruins of Atlas. What's the question? What are in the ruins of Atlas? Okay, and then you find out, and then you get this call to the next book of the alien drones are invading this planet of nice aliens that we have to go save.
Mm-hmm.
So in the book 3, you save the aliens on the nice planet, and then at the end of book 3, oh hey, those bad guys from book 2, they're coming to Earth and they're not happy. So book 4, you deal with the aliens that came to Earth, and then you got to go find this magic device to go save everyone in book 5, and it just goes on and on like that.
You don't even you ask the question and you answer it by the end of the book, but you also at the very end kind of foreshadow the question of the next book. Right.
And readers don't mind because they're so satisfied. They're like, oh, I got the big question answered. Ooh, another question. Let me go read that. And then,
yeah. Because it wasn't a cliffhanger.
No. I mean, it's like, at the end, you get to the end of the Ember War. Earth has been reconquered by humanity. And then at the very end, these other sort of aliens show up out of nowhere. And it's like, who are these people? What are they there?
Mm-hmm.
And then you also get the question at the end of the Ember War is like, hey, we got to go to this one planet and pick up and recover this device because it's going to help against the big bad guys. So
yeah, it's kind of like but wait, there's more.
Mm-hmm.
But wait, there's more.
If you look at a Star Trek episode, like for the night I grew up on The Next Generation.
Mm-hmm.
You get to the end, it's like next time on Star Trek: The Next Generation, and then you get the preview for the next episode. You're like, oh yeah, when's Saturday? Get Saturday, make Saturday get here. So you can watch the next one.
because the story is complete, but there's and here's what's coming, and I think
next week.
Yeah, I like that. So that because cliffhangers, it's like a cliffhanger without a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
it's like a teaser. What advice would you give to other authors who want to be successful?
Don't quit, because it's, I know what it's like. You write 1 or 2 books and you put them out there and they just sink to the bottom of the waves, and like, well, what happened? And then then it could take a while before you do get that one book that people do want. So so don't quit writing, but then also make sure you're writing what people want to read. And generally, if you're writing for money, you want to write something that brings in enough money that you don't have to do anything else. Okay, I don't know anyone who's happy with, I'm a lawyer and I write science fiction in my spare time. I mean, you pick one, okay? Because one of them is going to give you more happiness than the other. So I'm assuming that people who are writing want to write full time. So, and if you want to write full time, you need to write in a genre and a kind of a book that multiple and enough people will pay for, so that you can quit your day job. So, there's some people who out there who may be like, I really, really want to write Napoleon, 800-page books about Napoleon. But, you do that, you'll sell 50 copies, and that's it forever. So, but if you look around, it's like, okay, what do I really like to read that a lot of other people really like to read? So, like when that one other author said, well, what else could you write? And like, well, I love military sci-fi, and I know military sci-fi is huge on Amazon because the traditional publishers don't even want to touch it for some reason. So, like, okay, I will provide books for that hungry audience. Boom, there we go. I have a career. Yay.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I love that Amazon has opened up so many other genres and avenues for writers and readers who are like, I really want this book, but I can't find it anywhere. And now you can.
Yeah, it's I don't know why there's the gatekeepers in New York City decided we're only going to have these kinds of books, and that's all we're going to let you read. And then, meanwhile, people like what they like.
Yeah.
And I don't think Chuck Tingle would have ever touched it. Don't Google him. Don't. Yeah. The more stranger, the more nuanced subgenres. Let's put it that way. If it wasn't for Amazon, those nuanced subgenres would never have seen the light of day.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Space opera. I love it. I am super excited about that. Okay. Can you please tell us, so you've gotten teasers into his books throughout the episode, but what are you working on right now? Or what series, let's say, are you working on right now? And where can people find you?
I am putting the finishing touches on the 3rd Terran Strike Marine book that I'm writing with Scott Moon. And then I'm going to write the 6th and maybe 7th books in the Terran Armor Corps series, which starts with Iron Dragoons. And so that's what I'm working on right now. And then next month, I have a Kickstarter for an Ember War comic book. And it's I'm working with another author named John Delaraz. We've got the art. We've got it. It's going to be 5 or 6 comics, probably 6. And we've got the artist who's working full time. Everything is happening. With comics, they take forever. So now that's the next big thing. And the thing about the Ember War comic is, to the best of my knowledge, this is the first time an indie book has gone into becoming a comic book. And I may be wrong, but it's, to the best of my knowledge, this is the first time. So, and it's the entire Ember War is going to be 5 or 6 issues. And it's going to be in comic book stores. It's going to be on Comixology. It's going to be on Amazon. It's going to be everywhere. So, and then I of course I want all my stuff to be comics. Why not?
Right.
But it just takes a long time. So that's what we're working on right now. And then the best place to find my books is on Amazon. Just put in Richard Fox. I should be the first one that comes up. If you see a book about Keith Richards, that's not me.
I'll link to it in the show notes, you guys. I include everybody's Amazon and webpage if they have one.
And the best webpage to come say hi to me on is Facebook. Go to Facebook, Richard Fox Author. You'll see me. You'll see the cover for the Ember War there, and then say hi. And I have a lot of fun on Facebook, just talking about things that are going on, and I like to do, I like to have Captain Picard react to my reviews of movies and whatnot. It's just fun. So.
Captain Picard is coming back to Star Trek.
After Discovery, I'm a little hesitant to get excited.
I know, but it's exciting. I will try to put this out when your Kickstarter is coming out.
That will be September 15th.
Okay. This is very exciting, you guys. I think that sounds really fun to have a comic book series. I'm sure a lot of your fans and readers will be very happy.
I've been teasing it. I've been sharing art pictures. A lot of people are interested, and now it's like, okay. But I'm going to go to all my other writer friends and say, hey, here's what I got going on. Let's see if this can work for all of us. If this, the Ember War, can take off as a comic book, and that's a whole nother avenue for indie authors out there. Because like if I show this can succeed, look, and it's also to make money and not go broke making a comic book. And other people are like, oh, hey, maybe we should turn our stuff into a comic book too. Why not? What's wrong with having another stream of income? It keeps you out of the cubicle.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. You guys, that little last bit, if you made it this long, is why I appreciate people like you, Richard, of the, hey, how can we help everybody? If it works for me, it might work for more people. And doing that is, I think, really magical, and I appreciate it. Yeah. Okay. And thank you guys. So Richard, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
And bosses, thank you so much for listening. Hugs and happy authoring from Author Like a Boss. Hey boss, you made it to the end of the episode. You're the best. Because of that, I'm going to give you a special invitation to find out more about the Author Boss Academy, where I and a bunch of really awesome authors hang out, have fun, and get stuff done. If you end up joining, tell me the secret word and you'll get a special bonus. Find out more about the Academy at authorlikeaboss.com/academy. The secret word is nipples. Hugs and happy authoring. I hope to see you soon.
If you love the Author Like a Boss podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes. Until next time.